accused you of popping the champagne corks when you learned about the Pacific Brands job cuts. Is that out of line, suggesting that you're happy to see Australian jobs going down the gurgler?
You know what? We were a part of a government that helped to create 2 million new jobs in Australia and delivered an increase in 22%. Well, I tell you what, the only champagne corks that are popping are on a VIP jet as the Prime Minister jets off on one of his $3.4 million trips. I mean, if the Prime Minister gets down to that low level, we can fire back, and we will fire back. He's the biggest spending traveller of any Prime Minister in Australian history, and if any champagne corks are popping, he's the one blowing them off the top of the bottle on a VIP off to New York or London or anywhere else that he's been.
Well, the government, of course, would argue that these sort of trips are necessary so that Kevin Rudd can...
It's the Prime Minister's language. If the Prime Minister wants to play that sort of game, that's his choice. But let me just say, we're focused on the jobs of Australians, real jobs for Australians, and about giving them a message of hope that we can come out. What a contrast yesterday and in the last few days between President Obama, who has a message of hope and aspiration, and we can get out of it with the American people, and our Prime Minister, who keeps saying this is going to get worse, this is going to be terrible. What a contrast.
But Joe Hockey, didn't you say last year that you're sure that Australia is heading towards a recession? How's that for offering hope?
Well, I tell you what, because as an opposition spokesperson, we can be fair dinkum with the Australian people if the government is not being fair dinkum with the Australian people.
What the government is doing?
No, the government last year,
are coming.
Ashleigh, you will recall, last year the government declared war on inflation. And at that exact time, Malcolm Turnbull and Joe Hockey were saying that is the wrong war to declare. And why? Because we can see what's happening in international credit markets. That's why I said what I said last year. I don't apologise for it.
And you still agree that we're heading towards a recession?
If we're not in recession now, it's going to feel like a recession for many Australians.
So a recession is inevitable?
If we are not in recession now, I mean, look, there's technical definition of recession, right? 2 negative quarters in a row. You know what? Really, a recession is when more people lose their jobs than a normal economic cycle. It's when you see a fall in wealth, when you see hope and aspiration disappear, confidence disappear, all the indicators, major indicators on a consistent basis are going in the wrong direction. Now, Australians will feel like it's a recession. Whether it's a technical recession, technically defined recession or not, it is going to feel like it for many Australians, like those 1,850 workers at Pacific Brands.
Well, as the government puts together the next budget, what sacrifices do you think need to be made? Should paid maternity leave, for example, be shelved for a year or two, and will the opposition cut the government some slack if it doesn't honour every promise it's made?
Well, the government has set its own benchmarks. And you and I, you as a member of the media and I as a member of the opposition, have a responsibility to keep them to the benchmarks they have set. And it's up to the government to make decisions. I mean, it's not for us to commentate on whether they should or should not do it. It is up to them.
They do a pretty good job
but it is up to them. It is up to them. They set benchmarks. And just as they set a 75,000 job benchmark for the cash splash before Christmas and all the other cash splashes, totalling now $80 billion in additional spending commitments since the last budget, an extraordinary amount of money, with a massive drop in interest rates of 4% to date, probably going further. And you say to yourself, okay, well, how do you know they work? And the government said, well, we are going to create or sustain 330,000 jobs. Well, the evidence to date is that real people in Australia are losing real jobs, and the government has failed.
Well, the government, of course, would argue that it would be a lot worse if they hadn't acted. But I do just want to get your opinion
but hang on.
on...
Let's just touch on that. Let's just touch on that.
Well, I
It'd
think
be a lot
we have
worse.
touched on that.
But Ashleigh, can it get worse for the employees of Pacific Brands when they close their manufacturing operations in Australia? How could it have been worse than that? This is the point, isn't it? I mean, Pacific Brands, the government said, well, it takes time to work, and this is an incentive going forward. Well, Pacific Brands looked at all the incentives going forward and said, we cannot see a justification to keep employing these people in Australia over the next few years. Therefore, we're going to sack them now and we're going to close our manufacturing operations in Australia.
I think you've made your point on that one, Joe Hockey. I do just want to get your opinion on a story today that Brendan Nelson's come out in support of Joel Fitzgibbon yesterday.
No, he hasn't come out in support of Joel Fitzgibbon.
Well, he has said that the Defence Department struggles to take orders from civilians.
Well, that may be the case. The fundamental point about Joel Fitzgibbon is he said he gave a commitment in the Parliament last year that he would fix the fact that there are SAS soldiers getting zero pay. He said he would fix it. And that was October last year. He had failed to do it.
But Dr. Nelson's point is that the Defence Department is notorious for having this entrenched bureaucracy that doesn't listen to outsiders.
Well, that's a test of a minister. That's a test of a minister. I was a minister for 9 years. Well, that's right. And, I was a minister for 9 years. And I had departments that were challenging at times. But when you want to get something and you want to do something, you can get it. And, that's a Westminster system. And in this case, we've had lots of picture facts, lots of picture opportunities of the Prime Minister being with SAS soldiers. And at that time, those SAS soldiers, some of them, were getting zero pay. And I really wonder, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defence are always happy to wrap their arms around the SAS soldiers. But those SAS soldiers are crying out for help, and the Minister for Defence didn't lift a finger.
I'm sure we'll hear more about that in Question Time today. Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
We'll be back after a quick break.
If you're a business user, ask me about the latest computing solutions.
Ask me about the best way to pay for them.
Ask me about flexi renting. You should ask me. I've just done it. I had to update, but I needed my cash for wages and operation.